So, just to be clear, if you see a yellow cab in an outer borough now, you can hail it, but this just adds an additional fleet of cabs devoted exclusively to picking up street hails in the outer boroughs and in Upper Manhattan, correct?
Yes and no. You absolutely can hail a yellow cab if you are in an outer borough. Whether or not this will actually add thousands of new livery cabs to the streets of the outer boroughs is unclear. What it's doing is legitimizing a practice that's already happening all over the city thousands of times a day.
With the so-called black cars.
Exactly. What it's doing is
The big day will be October 1st, 1907, when a fleet of derelict taxi cabs went down from the new Metropolitan Museum of Art to the grand opening of the Plaza Hotel, ushering in taximeter-equipped and gasoline-powered taxis rather than hackney coaches. So that's the first big date. Okay? And they become very popular.
In 1907, businessman Harry and Allen started the New York Taxi Cab Company, importing 65 red gasoline-powered vehicles from France. Within a year, 700 taxi cabs ran the streets of New York.
There become too many of them quickly in the 1920s, and there's no regulations, and there's no political point to touch upon, in particular because of free market capitalism, which meant rates went up and down virtually by the day. When the Depression hit, after the Great Gatsby era was over, then there were too many drivers looking for too few fares. So this meant that there was, some proletarianization of the cab drivers, mixed as well with the fact that there were many fallen occupations: lawyer, doctor, writers, teachers, who would become cab drivers.
During the 1930s, a string of violent strikes arose over industry taxes, cab fares, and development of unions. Competition, corruption, and unrest over driving conditions led to high tensions within the industry. As a result, in 1937, the Haas Act is passed, establishing the medallion system and official taxi licenses, stimulating further union organization, highlighting those who did not meet industry criteria and qualifications without the proper license.
The Haas Act establishes stability within the trade. It satisfies both sides. The city will get good, responsible cab driving, done by people who have a vested interest in it. And the other side, the people who own medallions know that they are in a numerically limited occupation, that they have the exclusive rights to pick up passengers in Manhattan, which is a gravy train, and then eventually later on, of course, at the airports in the 1950s and on. Okay, so the medallion means a lot to both sides. It's control over the occupation by the workers, and the city gives good, reliable service.
The Haas Act helped rocket the industry to another level. The economy boomed, and with it, so did the value of the medallion. Each driver became an independent businessman. To ensure cabby behavior, the Hack Bureau served as a watchdog in the 1940s. They tried to enforce that cabbies took fares into the outer boroughs, which cabbies found unsafe and unprofitable, excluding hundreds of passengers throughout the borders of the city, leaving the door wide open for another realm of drivers to step up within the industry.
We'll drive anywhere we're not yellow. That was a slogan I saw quite a bit in the 70s.
Fueron momentos difíciles para los inicios de la industria del taxi, principalmente en el Bronx, donde todas estas eran áreas que estaban quemadas, áreas que nadie quería venir acá a trabajar.
The number of unofficial taxi drivers escalated. Livery and gypsy cabs became growing competitors against medallion drivers. In 1972, in response to this growing number, the Taxi Limousine Commission is founded and replaces the Hack Bureau. In this first year, the TLC registers 11,787 cabbies. They began regulating not only medallion drivers, but all for-hire vehicles, including livery cabs.
And our primary purpose is to regulate for-hire vehicle service in the city. So pretty much anytime somebody drives a private vehicle that they own and they want to offer you to take you somewhere in the city, that's our jurisdiction. So, you know, commuter vans, livery cabs, yellow cabs, green cabs, these are all vehicles that somebody privately owns, but they have to get a license from us. And we make sure that the cars are inspected for safety, that they have the proper insurance. We require higher insurance than a regular private vehicle that only you drive is required to have.
Livery cabs are required to be affiliated with a for-hire base and legally are supposed to provide a pre-arranged service only. They charge fares based on zone system by hour or sometimes by mile. Though they lack the right to pick up in the streets, it becomes normal and essential for drivers and passengers throughout the city.
The issue of race with cab driving has always been there. Okay? It was certainly there from the 1950s on when yellow cab drivers decided they didn't want to go into black neighborhoods. They felt they were in danger of being robbed.
Crime ran the city of New York. Violence against taxi drivers rapidly escalated, leading and making taxi drivers the victims of the highest homicide rate of any occupation in the United States by 1996. Their job is one of close proximity to total strangers working with cash, alone, at all times of the day and in high crime areas. The violence in the city affected all taxi drivers. Soon, bulletproof partitions between the front and back seats became common for all cars to have, as well as cameras that photograph passengers entering and leaving the vehicle. At some point, even bulletproof vests were introduced to the industry in order to protect the safety of drivers.
En el 97 más o menos que comencé a trabajar, era un trabajo que para uno hacer 50, 70 pesos había que dar muchas vueltas porque el mínimo eran $3.50 creo, $4. Y prácticamente no estaba en la calle, pero andaba con la vida muy en peligro, porque no había la seguridad que hoy en día hay. No está la tecnología que hoy en día hay, el sistema de cámara y eso nos protege mucho. Y nosotros, gracias a Dios, estamos un poquito más cuidados hoy en día que en los años 90, porque en esos tiempos había muchas cosas negativas, aquí mucha droga, mucha muerte. Hoy en día está, pero está en un nivel muy bajo, más bajo que en esos tiempos.
I had a friend that was a livery driver, number 57 from Kennedy Car Service. He actually got killed, and because of him I got involved helping the drivers from that livery car service. Most of them had very little knowledge of English, and it was tough because, as I recall, there were at least 30, 40, 50 drivers killed a year from the livery industry.
Viví momentos difíciles como son aquellos momentos de cuando mataban a un taxista casi todos los días. Ya mi familia cuando escuchaba la noticia me llamaba para seguida y me decía, ven para acá, deja eso, ¿me entiendes? Pero tenía una familia que echaba adelante y gracias a Dios pude superar esa etapa. Ya pasaron unos 10, 12, 13 años. El tiempo ha ido evolucionando.
100,000 transportation drivers now roam the city of New York. Livery drivers have continued to illegally pick up street hails, practice that has proven to be most dangerous, counting for 82% of livery cab robberies and 6 of 7 homicides.
Muchos choferes murieron en la década de los 70, de los 80 y al principio de los 90 o a mediados de los 90, el promedio de muertes por año de taxistas era aproximadamente 25 taxistas cada año morían. Hubo años que llegaron a 39 taxistas muertos.
With violence against the taxi industry escalating in the late 80s and 90s, especially against livery drivers, the conversation between the livery industry and taxi limousine commissions was distancing more than ever, if existent at all. In 1998, the New York State Federation of Taxi Drivers was established, headed by Fernando Mateo. The Federation of Taxi Drivers constantly appeared in the media, representing and becoming a voice for livery drivers.
Trabajamos fuerte con las autoridades para que asumieran la responsabilidad que tenían, que ellos habían olvidado a la industria del taxi y eso trajo como promedio el descuido que había, los asaltos, los crímenes, los abusos que habían contra la industria del taxi. Después de mucho trabajo, pues nosotros podemos decir hoy con orgullo que aproximadamente pasa hasta un año y no matan un taxista.
I only hope that the regulators, for example, Taxi and Limousine Commission, could sit down and get a broad input from the industry before they start to implement rules and regulations. This is the other way around. I feel that they implement rules and regulations to see what happens.
We did a lot of surveys of drivers, asking them, kind of getting a sense of where do you make most of your money. And many drivers, I think it was the majority of drivers that we surveyed, told us, I mix in dispatch calls from my base and I do legal street hails. I really can't make it ends meet unless I do both types.
For a livery driver, a working shift is approximately 12 hours and the daily income varies from $70 to $100 after the expenses of the day.
Que un carro rentado lo primero que tiene que hacer son $40 para el carro, $40 para gasolina, 10 para la base y después lo que sobra de ahí para allá es la ganancia de ellos. Así que tiene que buscarse los primeros $100 que se gastan, ya están gastados antes de gastarse.
Some drivers work for car services that give them calls all day long, and that's all they need to do, and that's great. But many of the folks, I think the majority of drivers, work for car services where they get some calls, but they don't get enough calls to survive off that, so they do pickups on the street. And that's really where this was targeted to. I mean, it's basically legitimizing what drivers are already doing, what the public already wanted, and regulating it better.
I don't think there's any question about it. Thanks to the hard work of Taxi and Limousine Commissioner Chairman David Yaski and Corporation Counsel Michael Cardozo, we're now set to do something that mayors have been trying to accomplish for decades, something that New Yorkers have deserved and never had, and that's the right to hail a legal taxi in all 5 boroughs.
After years of conversation and speculation on the summer of 2013, the first batch of green out-of-borough cabs were out on the streets of New York. Though this meant more legal options for street passengers, it also entails a whole different system for those who decide to join the new system. Over the next 3 years, the city can sell 18,000 borough taxi permits, so 6,000 each year. It's only been 3 months of the implementation and already 6,000 permits have been sold, with 1,500 drivers on the waiting list.
This is something they already do, right? People already all over the city, 200,000. We think there's something between 150,000, 200,000 illegal street hail trips that occur. And by illegal meaning a livery cab driver picks them up. And so people are already doing it all over the city every day. They put their hand out, they get a cab to stop in front of them. A lot of times and if they're outside of Manhattan, it's almost always going to be a livery cab. Now it's starting to be a green cab.
Que vemos muchas personas que quizás no tenemos el dinero de la inversión que estamos haciendo. Yo para preparar mi carro tuve que gastar casi $5,000.
So we wanted to make sure that this that people could become legitimate. Like we didn't want to put this requirements and then have nobody be able to afford to do it. So one thing we did is we worked with several non-profit like microfinancers.
Que hay que pagar los impuestos y los taxes como es. Ya uno se tiene que obtener de algunos beneficios como los seguros, los cupones, pero a la larga eso tiene su beneficio ya para el retiro de uno, la vejez y la inversión de uno que uno hace como taxista aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York.
Y nada, es una inversión y todo cambio necesita inversiones, ¿me entiendes? Pero son cambios que tú lo haces que a corto y largo plazo tú empiezas a ver tu beneficio. Ya hoy en día yo me paro y monto delante del policía porque ya yo estoy, como diríamos aquí, legal para montar gente en la calle.
El tema de Green Card es igual como la ciudadanía americana, que uno lo hace para protección y para evitar tickets.
Ya antes solamente tenía licencia para coger llamadas, ya hoy en día yo puedo montar legal y tengo un poquito menos de miedo que lo que tenía antes porque cuando me paraba no sabía si me iba a salir un policía o quién me iba a salir. Ya hoy en día, como tengo licencia para eso, me monto y el que me levantó la mano me paro.
After 15 years of being a livery car driver, Wilfredo Jimenez is now one of the 6,000 permit holders in the city who do not have to worry about the TLC implementing the hundreds of dollars of illegal street pickup summons and tickets given to livery cab drivers on the daily basis for servicing passenger need.
500 to 1,000 for illegal street hails, and you can even you can lose your vehicle. They can be seized. We want those penalties to be strict, frankly, because we don't want the public getting into totally unlicensed vehicles. So when we catch people, we want it to be a strong deterrent that, like, if you're going to do this, you're going to do completely unlicensed activity, well, and we catch you, you're going to lose your car. Like, that's how, you know, important it is to us that the public gets into a licensed vehicle with a licensed driver that has the right insurance.
Antes pensaba que porque era que para ser taxista había tantas restricciones, ¿me entiendes? Que te chequean si has estado preso, si usa droga, todo ese sistema de cosas, pero ya después del tiempo me he dado cuenta por qué es. Porque es que en este trabajo apuntamos tanto tipo de personas que si tú eres una persona un poco corta de la mente, puede caer en cosas negativas, ¿me entiendes?
This new system comes with new rules and implementations. In order to enforce and regulate these restrictions, new technology has been added to the cars.
Aquí tenemos un sistema de tarjeta de crédito. En este monitor acá, como tú ves, sale toda la información del ride y cómo quiere pagar y eso. Aquí de enfrente tenemos un monitor que para comenzar a trabajar, para que el metro arranque, tengo que ingresarle mi número de licencia, de la high license, y ahí se enciende, me da pase a lo que es el metro. El metro es algo bueno, ¿me entiendes? Pues ya tú miras que aquí sale toda la información mía, mi nombre, mi número de permiso, aquí abajo está mi licencia y debajo está mi nombre otra vez. Es un sistema que al principio un poco difícil, pero después no va aprendiendo el paso.
All these cabs have GPS systems in them. So whenever you do a trip, a passenger gets in or out, the system records where the pickup occurred and where the drop-off occurred, so where the trip started and ended. And the system also knows that these cabs can't pick up below 96th Street on the west side of Manhattan, excuse me, on the east side, and below 110th on the west side. So when the car is driving into Manhattan and it goes into those areas, it locks itself down. You can't start the meter up, you can't use the credit card, and we don't want conflict to occur or an oversaturation of having all these green cabs coming into Lower Manhattan, so we made that into the restriction zone. But the system itself is what primarily does that. And then we also have inspectors, we have enforcement officers, kind of like a taxi police.
Mi tiempo vale, ¿me entiendes? Entonces si yo salgo con un pasajero, por ejemplo, aquí yo vivo aquí en el Bronx, y lo llevamos a Manhattan, nos coge un tapón de media hora, una hora afuera, el pasajero va contento porque no va pagando nada. Pero a veces no lo queremos ni llevar a Manhattan porque si te coge un tapón va a perder una hora y media en un tapón que tú pierdes dinero. Ya con el miro, si te coge un tapón, pues el pasajero va a pagar. Porque tú cogiste el tapón porque quieres llevar al pasajero a su destino.
While they're street hailing, they cannot take calls from the base they're registered with. Now, when they're not street hailing, they report to the base that they're available, and they can get, because they will continue to be affiliated to bases, but the base have to have the permit.
Esa es la ventaja que tenemos, porque si tú quieres seguir trabajando por la base, pues puedes seguir trabajando por la base. Aquí tengo mi radio, que puedo coger llamadas normales como esta base. Si no quieres coger en la calle, puedes usar tu sistema en la base.
If the base doesn't have the base endorsement permit, the car cannot affiliate themselves with that car service.
Standby 013939. Tiempo más. ¿Qué tiempo más? 01 era negativo. Es un cambio que a mí hoy en día me está yendo un poco mejor ya que lo que me estaba yendo antes. Porque estoy viendo mejor beneficio, estoy trabajando menos ahora y estoy ganando un poquito más. Hay otros que no quieren ese sistema porque dicen que no va a funcionar. Por ahora, en el momento, a mí me está funcionando. Estoy trabajando menos y estoy recibiendo un poco más de dinero, pero también he tenido que cambiar de zona de trabajo. Yo antes trabajaba un 90% en el Bronx. Hoy en día ya, como tengo el sistema nuevo de montaje en la calle, me he mudado para Manhattan. Ya paso un 80% casi de mi tiempo lo paso en Manhattan. Porque la gente de Manhattan está acostumbrada ya a ese sistema de tarjeta de crédito, de miro, de todo eso.
Pues estamos utilizando un tipo de vehículo más moderno, esto que el otro, pero los ingresos se han mantenido prácticamente igual. Por lo tanto, yo pienso que ha sido de manera desigual. Nosotros creemos que la forma como se manejó estas negociaciones fueron, aparte de deshonestas, también pienso, aparte de nosotros, pienso que hubo negligencia, pienso que hubo falta de conocimiento o quizás falta de interés en saber cuáles eran las principales necesidades de nuestra industria. Y le dimos a la ciudad y al Estado mucho a cambio de prácticamente nada.
We're constantly tweaking stuff to try to make sure that it's as easy as possible to become a borough taxi owner.
Before the implementations were approved, delivery driver was already going through very significant technological changes for an industry where most drivers are middle-aged immigrants. The dispatcher system that distinguished the delivery industry has recently started using software programs as mediators between the driver, base, and passenger instead of the radio systems.
I have seen a transformation of the industry. For example, today, you have technology. Back in the days, you have what they call the two-way radio, and it was like a shouting contest because you had the dispatcher trying to reach a driver, and then you had all these drivers trying to compete for the same calls.
En esos tiempos, porque no existía el sistema de computadora, lo que había que estar era voceando por el carro. Cuando tú ves la llamada, dices, oye, el 300, estoy aquí en tal sitio. Cuando se juntaban 10 personas en la misma llamada, era prácticamente casi imposible la comunicación. Era mucho más difícil. Ya hoy en día tú solamente con apretar tu radio, tu número entra automáticamente en la computadora. Y el primero que entra es el de la llamada. Así que ahora es mucho más fácil que en esos tiempos.
Para los dispatchers también es algo que lo está ayudando a ellos a trabajar más cómodo, que no tienen que estar hablando mucho por el micrófono. Lo ayuda bastante porque ya el taxista no tiene que estarlo llamando a ellos para que le indique una dirección o X, porque la tabla se lo hace.
Technology continues to upgrade, but not only for livery drivers. In April of 2013, a pilot program for e-hail apps was given the green light. E-hail car service apps like Uber and Halo allow riders to hail yellow taxis using their smartphones, a service similar to that of traditional livery transportation methods of pre-arranging rides through car bases. The new mayor of New York State, Bill de Blasio, has already clearly pointed out his unhappiness with some of the policies pushed and put into place by former Mayor Michael Bloomberg and his chosen TLC council members. And when it comes to the green out-of-borough cars, he's already expressed that he plans to relook and revise taxi policies. Changes are quickly occurring. Technology has and continues to transform the taxi industry. Nonetheless, the social impact that the taxi business has on the city and vice versa will serve as great determinants on what's next for the future of the industry. I'm Jojine Castillo.